agenda here. The first thing that we're going to do is review the budget requests, and we've got to get started on our recommendations. All the warrant articles, the deadline for the deadline for warrant articles is the 25th, which is next week, Monday. But we need to act on what we've got. Time is running out when they need some of this information. So, does anybody have? Wait a minute. Now, Phil has prepared some documents for us here, given the requests that we've had.
Shall I
Do you want to explain?
review what they are? Hopefully, self-explanatory.
So you've taken all the requests that we got, and I guess you've been
Let's just
working.
say a majority of the requests have been completed. I'll get that to that. But the first thing on the first page was the summary from the. So the first thing is the budget summary and all the calculations. We're still waiting for information, but hopefully that gives you the summary information that's generally that I found in the meeting warrant from last year. Kind of reflective. The next is the Omnibus Budget, again taken from what's in the warrant from last year. And I got through most of it. If you look at the last page, you'll see that I kind of just threw in the number for the library and all of the, most of the other cultural and recreation categories, because I didn't get time to kind of put those budgets directly in.
Isn't that, is it?
Yep. Nope. This is from what I.
Maybe it's,
Was with this package.
in this, maybe.
What's this? Yeah, that's the one.
This is the one.
And whatnot. So I can
Yeah.
share.
Okay, that looks like it.
And the last piece of information goes with the warrants, because those 5 warrants that were passed out aren't included on this summary of capital kind of requests.
Okay.
So,
And this is the one that, and I talked to Andrea a little bit today, and she spoke to me about our making decisions where the money is coming from, and that's this.
correct. That's
Okay.
what this last piece is.
All right.
So, and I do have a rather large workbook that breaks it all out into the individual budgets that you've been reviewing since you started the process. But I didn't think you needed me to print
No.
all of those out again.
No. And I understand that you and Sandra and Andrea have worked together to make sure everybody, you all have the copies of those requests, so there shouldn't be anything
Correct.
missing.
Correct. And if you look at the Omnibus Budget, if you see something that's in the Finance Committee recommendation file, that actually represents the salaries from this year. So I put this workbook together so you can have this kind of a summary across 5 different options.
Okay.
So that's just, I just chose the one that didn't have any changes. So that column represents the current
Is that
salary.
this one here?
Yep,
Okay. Right.
in the finance.
Excuse me, so if we go to selectmen's salaries,
Yep,
it will be the same as this year's.
correct, is what's in this year's budget.
Because we haven't given him a figure yet
Right.
for the COLA. Right.
Town administrator's salary, and that's down, okay.
All right, so
Okay.
let's talk about the COLA first of all. What we've done in the past is gone by what the federal,
If you're going to talk about that, I'm going to recuse myself.
well, do you want us to wait till later? And,
No, you can do it now. I'll come
I
back.
would
Good.
rather wait till later,
Wanna
we
wait
have
till
no
later?
clue how much
Okay.
money we have left over.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have to make some decisions, Bonnie,
Right.
whether we have it all together or not.
Right.
Tonight, we've gotta get started on it, so, you'd rather we.
Whichever you want to do, it's up to you. Whatever will make
Well,
it.
I thought we'd do that one, well, whatever. All right, with all the budget requests we had from the various departments, does anybody have any concerns on any of them? I have one that I want to talk about. The largest request we saw for an increase was the EMS, and I think that was a $40,000 increase. And so that we need to talk about a little bit, not just say that it's okay. So that would be in here somewhere.
It is not, unfortunately. I forgot to print those. The enterprise funds
Yes.
aren't printed out. I can go print them out if you want.
No, that's
Pages.
okay. No, because that's another thing I was going to talk to you about. We got, or bring up today, we got the sewer budget yesterday, and I didn't get a chance to look at it till today. But that format, and I realize it's a new person, that's not the enterprise fund format, but you did something.
Translated it, yeah, I think so.
Because
You'll have
they
to let me know.
should say what source of funds it is. Usually the sewer is all within their own enterprise fund. So, okay. The EMS is going outside of their enterprise fund this time and looking for $40,000 additional from taxpayers' money. So I think we ought to talk about it, how you feel about that, whether that's justified or not. What we heard was that that's necessary to keep them functioning at the paramedic level, and the requirements for that, and getting more and more difficult to have volunteer people, or people volunteer for, they have to have shifts covered for the paramedics, and I guess it's, for now, they're covering one shift a day, I believe. So if they don't get that increase in money, they will not eventually be able to get people to volunteer to take the shifts or to volunteer for the coverage. Now, I think most people understand, but when we say volunteer fire department, volunteer EMS, they are paid when they work. But what I think we were told, I know we were told, was that if they don't get the money, then, and the volunteers, and there are no volunteers available, they won't have a service.
I think that my thing is that we should also look at the potential option of looking at a commercial service to service this town, as at least an option to do research on it, to see what's available and what that would cost for the town as on a contractual basis for services. The other thing is, my biggest concern is that they're now servicing another community where we're bearing the cost, and the community's getting, we've been told there's supposed to be an MOU for approximately 1 year for services to Bernardston, but that's, even to provide that service is gonna be an increased cost, and the taxpayers of Northfield are gonna have to fund it. My thing is, if we're gonna increase the budget, I'd like to make sure that this service's priority is our community. We're paying for it, this is the taxpayers, and I think my concern is, if they're out of town, what's their response time gonna be to the residents of our community? We only have one ambulance that's paramedic level, and if you have their staff people gone on that ambulance, you have a backup ambulance, how long is it gonna be the response time to get to the residents of our community who are paying taxes for that service? If they have to wait 20, 25, 45 minutes, that could put people's lives at risk.
Well, wasn't that one of the reasons why they wanted $40,000 to have somebody on there
Yeah,
all the
but the
time?
problem you're
Not
having is that
20,000.
would be fine if we're servicing our community.
Yeah.
But we're taking additional responsibilities. That means they're doing more mutual aid, they're doing more, gonna be taking on Bernardston, that means there's a higher probability that the ambulance could possibly not be available for the use of the residents of our community. And we're gonna be paying an additional $40,000 for the potential of getting potentially lesser service. And I have concerns that is the issue of, like I said, response time. And again, I'm glad, I haven't seen the MOU, but I'm glad at least it was, because originally they were talking about 3 years. And then I believe it's, again, I'm
1 year.
It's not 1 year, but we haven't seen a copy of the MOU to confirm that. But I think that we should, even if we fund it, I think as a finance committee and as a taxpayer, we have to be responsible that we don't take another community on and down the road.
Without some commitment from the
Without
other
some
community.
commitment to
Financial
the expenses,
commitment from the other
financial
community.
commitment. I really don't think anymore we should be saying, oh, we'll give you a year of service at no cost to you, and we're bearing the cost. I think that we're paying salaries, we're paying wear and tear on an ambulance, and what various other expenses, insurance, all these liability insurance. You know, again, I would like to continue obviously having ambulance service, but this kind of takes away from our residents here.
The problem with doing any kind of a research as far as kind of late in the season to try to do that, so we'd have to try to do something for next year as far as that.
I think that we should look at that potential option down the road. Now, again, we hear from one side, obviously, the EMS chief who believes that commercial services aren't a viable option. Again, but there's no research, we have not received anything clearly in writing or any documents to show that any company is not interested in servicing our community. I think we should look at it as a potential option of the future. Keep our options open is the best way I'd say. The other thing too here is if they require EMS to be more and more, salary for more services from their personnel, we should be thinking someday of maybe putting both EMS and fire together, as most communities are doing. I think just to start, so we would have at least potentially firefighters EMS, which we're paying for, so we get 2 services, where right now we're going to get 1. And I think as our community grows, or with this college, that's going to have to be a better option, I think, than having a standalone EMS service.
So, that's down the road, but right now, as far as doing that, this $40,000 that we're talking about, one of the things they were hoping to do is offset it with more calls to Bernardston, but I understand that we should have 100%, we should have priority. The town of Northfield should have priority over anything else. But some of the things you said, basically, we're going to have to get the administrator involved and try to get this maybe up and running for next year. And so this might be an experiment. Is it a $40,000 experiment that we want to go into?
I just wish we had more time, more information to that, and $40,000 is a significant increase in their budget getting outside their enterprise fund. Are we going to be faced that next year to keep it going, we're going to need even more than that?
They still want the enterprise fund, because remember I asked that, and yet usually an enterprise fund is self-sufficient, and whether this is just one time feeding it with more money, I don't know. It's not going to give us 24/7 coverage of a paramedic, not with what
the thing is with the enterprise, but we also, the town pays for the ambulance. We have, we're on the hook for that. So if this goes down the tubes, then we're still on the hook for the ambulance as far as doing that. So it's an investment. I'm torn as far as doing that. Again, when they said they were going to go to Bernardston, I was hoping that Bernardston would kick in some of that funding.
I think that's a fair, reasonable request. We're not asking for anything that's, I just think that, again, I hope that we don't make the next leap of taking another community on and then having another expense, because again, they clearly would like to grow the service potentially into Gill or Irving or other communities.
This is what concerns me. It looks like we're going into competition with the private ambulance companies.
Well, is there one available at the moment? I don't think there is.
Well, we don't
But,
know.
yeah, again, we can debate this all night long as far as doing it. Is this something we want to maybe see what we have in our budget and then say, okay, all things being equal, this is like priority number, whatever, 10?
I think we should see what we have in our budget, we can afford it. I mean,
Okay.
$40,000, I mean, is a significant increase.
I think,
And I'd like to know what we're actually getting for that $40,000.
We're getting to be able to keep the ambulance service alive
exactly.
every year. That's
Yes.
explained very clearly, because if they're not, it's a double-edged sword. Because if we can't keep going, then it falls apart. Bernardston doesn't get its service on a timely basis. The sense is out there by a lot of communities, they don't get it on a timely basis. And the idea that Northfield always has to have priority, I fully understand that. But if they're ever called for mutual aid, they go anyway. So the idea that we're gonna wait and say no to mutual aid because maybe somebody in our town needs help, what kind of rules do you put in for that? I understand fully. What I would like to propose is that if the money is available, that maybe we can do a portion of it and say renegotiate with Bernardston and get a little bit of money now, because we can't foot the bill ourselves the whole way through. And their philosophy is if we can do more calls,
We get more money.
we will get more money and we can begin to be back on track. And I do understand that philosophy.
So,
And when you're in a small town and you don't have a lot of people coming in to buy bread, you gotta go somewhere else to sell your bread. And
I
you have to go.
just wish they had also sat down with us more to see where their growth, where their business plan, what are they looking to do for the future. They
Well, if we
obviously,
had asked for it, they'd have come back. They
So-
were one of the first group that we talked with.
I-
And we've
I
left
just-
all of this to the end.
my question here is that, all right, so we spend 40,000, I agree, we need EMS service, I'm not disagreeing. But my thing is that if I'm paying $40,000, this town better get that kind of service. And we should not be going beyond our community unless we're gonna increase the staffing to ensure that these residents here who are paying the bills are gonna get the service they deserve and they're paying for.
here's something that I would probably suggest then as far as doing that. If we do decide to do this, that we ask them to come back in 6 months, see how things are going.
Mm-hmm.
To see if the money that we were allowed in the head was spent wisely and it's working. And if it's not working, then next year, we might be looking at reducing some of the,
Taking it back.
yeah. So I think, basically, it's kind of like, almost like a wait and see kind of thing. If it worked and they are getting to the black as far as doing that and are doing better than anticipated, then, it was a good move. If they are not, if they're not in the black and are going more and more into the red and we're taking up more brunt of that, then we have to rethink the whole thing. But if we start, instead of at budget time, if this is a real concern for us, we start 6 months before. And or we bring in an alternative too.
But I
So
think
it's not
too,
the
if we're
monopoly.
we should also, again, if we're gonna grow into other communities, they, from the get-go, should be paying the service.
I think for me, I understand what you're saying fully, but I have a real issue with the TA and the select board signing a contract without consulting us first.
I
So I
absolutely agree with
don't
that.
think it's EMS's total fault
Mhm.
by any means. They told their situation to the select board, and Bernardston is asked, the TA's done up a contract, and it's all signed, and we have not been consulted. So they have already sort of spent our money, because we're gonna give them service for a year. And if we don't give them the money,
It was a done deal before we
that's
heard
right.
of it.
That's,
And
I
that's,
agree.
I think we need to state that to them. I don't know for sure, but we may not be opposed to the thought process, but I am 100% opposed to how it took place. Because we're the financial board and we were not considered at all.
That's right.
And that bothers me a great deal.
The other thing too here is, I agree, we cannot have a community without EMS. But I also think that the town we have a responsibility to look at potential other options in case EMS cannot survive, that we should look at private service. Because
I
again,
agree.
we have no research, we have nothing in front of us saying companies aren't able to provide service to the town, they're not interested in providing service to the town. Options. You know, what companies are available? Are they willing to do a contractual service for this community to respond to our residents? We haven't seen any of that. All we heard was they're not interested. Well,
It's just
I'd like to see
somebody's
something more
opinion.
than that.
Then,
I don't think there was any formal discussion with them.
Yeah, there was no
about
formal
that.
discussion. It was just an opinion given to us that.
Yeah.
Based on experience from others. But I think we're all upset about how this came about. And I think all the ideas of going forward are extremely important. But we don't have control of
Correct.
next year's yet. We got to get through this year's.
yes.
They had started serving Bernardston by the time we were made aware of
Yeah,
this.
and so we're already sort of hooked into.
If they sign a contract, obviously, then and they're the authority, they signed a contract, we're obligated to fulfill that contract. But I agree, the process wasn't wrong, I think, and the other thing too is, again, I just am concerned when that ambulance is out on a run to Bernardston and it's going down to, Franklin Medical, who's covering this town? I'm concerned, if you call for help, who's coming? How long are you gonna have to wait?
Then it's going to rely on these
Who's mutual
volunteers to
But
come
the same
forth.
thing can happen if you have a call in Northfield over on 142. Wait.
Correct, but
And there are ambulances busy.
But the risks increase when you also take on additional calls, additional responsibility, and additional community that has distance away from us. And again, too, if they were willing to put forward some manpower, willing to put forward some money to us, not just we're giving them a coverage basically free for a year.
Again, I think
That's
what
already done, but
yeah.
It's done.
It's,
And I think what we need to do is get the town administrator in here, express our thing, and if she wants to follow up on it, we can get something going. Look for an alternative, if there is an alternative, to make it clear that if this is the only game in town as far as doing it, or this is the most economical way to go, then that's it. But I think we're kind of on hook, I think, for this. As far
I
as
talked once about it, and she needed to know specifically what it was we were looking for in the way of additional information. And I said, I want to know what the $40,000 is getting us. Is it getting us a paramedic 7 days a week for one shift?
It's on that report he gave us.
Excuse me, yeah.
It is on there.
Okay. Exactly what he's.
I thought so.
It was
Somebody, and I'm not in really good order here. I'll tell you. So we can go on to the next one.
As far as I'm concerned about, we're trying to compete with the private enterprises, and they do not charge. If that, what's the new one called down there?
well, I assume that the company, from what I heard, was purchased out by AMI, which is a
Yes.
large national concern.
And I understand that the company like that does not charge a town for providing the service.
No, the only thing they would charge is obviously if you require an ambulance to be in the community at all times,
yeah.
or a garage in this town with the staff people here.
Yeah.
If it's just on-call basis, there's normally
No.
not a fee.
No.
they're making it with the insurance companies, of course,
Correct.
and that's
They're
how they're
making it
making.
on the
That's
runs.
how they anticipating making money to kind of offset some of this enterprise fund was the insurance paying for more calls as far as doing that. But at the expense of who? And I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
So the thing is, as far as doing that, I mean, we can debate this all night long, but we got the rest of the budget to go over.
No, I agree, but I'm just, again, this one really, because of what Bonnie brought up, the issue it was a fait accompli dumped on us. And the other thing is, we still don't have a copy of the MOU. Have you seen one yet?
No.
No.
I haven't seen a copy either.
Well,
No.
why do we need to see it?
No,
I'd like
again,
to
it's
see
not-
what the specifics are. Was it, first it was supposed to be 3 years, then we've
But
been
it's
hearing.
all over and done with.
Yeah, I still would
We're
like to
taking-
see a copy of it to see
Agreed,
what
but
we're on
that-
the hook for.
Well, again,
That's
that's
our thought.
that's
Yeah.
stuff that we can ask for, and get more information and again, see if this was spent wisely, if it's working out, then, you know, like I said, we'll call them back before budget period and say, hey, how things are going. We want to know if this is working. If not, we're thinking about an alternative, what, you know, and that sort of thing. But right now, as far as doing that, the $40,000, it sounds like we're, you know.
The thing of it is, Bernardston's alternative would be AMR,
Private service,
private
which
service,
they have.
and that wouldn't cost them anything.
Yeah.
Same,
So-
the insurance payments for those travel. So in order to get their business, he's offering it to them free.
Well,
And
he's
that's
offering.
where he's competing, I know.
Yeah, he's offering it to him for the same thing that the other
Same,
companies
yeah.
offered.
Yeah.
So he's looking at the insurances kicking in. Where I would be really looking for other communities to contribute if we had to pay for another ambulance.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm concerned of the wear and
Yeah.
tear and who's gonna, again, we're paying.
So,
I don't worry if it has to close because we don't have the volunteers or whatever, they close down. I don't think there'd be any difficulty selling the fully equipped ambulance.
No, I don't think it's an issue, but again, $40,000 is a lot of money. I'm not gonna debate anymore about 40. If you're willing to go spend it, I wanna spend it wisely. I wanna spend it as a necessity. And, you know, I'll go with how the board feels. I just disagree with some aspects of this.
well,
Yeah,
again,
okay, well,
I mean,
I don't think we're all really comfortable with it anyway.
no.
my understanding is, well, correct me if I'm wrong, is that both ambulances can support paramedics.
I thought that, and he said that
And-
too.
No, he did say that.
No, he said they were going to push to get to that level of the newest ambulance. They still weren't he said they were going to go to that level, but they weren't at the time he was before us, was at that same level.
That's not the impression I got, but,
Yeah.
If we have two ambulances that are, well, obviously one is newer, much more room to move around and stuff
Oh, yeah.
like that.
Yeah. It's got the
But if it's
lift.
equipped to handle all different calls, my understanding is that 40,000, certainly part of it at least, was going to go to the more lucrative paramedic calls. I mean, you know, presumably we'll be able to handle more of those. And that's, as I understand it, more lucrative than just transport, which
Yeah.
is a lot of what
The
they do.
second vehicle, I mean, there is some call for transport from hospital to nursing home or hospital to rehab facility, something like that. And I think that second vehicle certainly covered for that type of thing without any
Definitely, yeah.
upgrade. Yeah.
But I think it's covered for more than that, and
Yes, I think so.
And if we had more, I would assume that we'd have more paramedic coverage,
Yeah.
then we would be able to respond to more lucrative calls if you want. Not that we're gonna pick and choose which ones we
No. No.
respond to, but that should result in an increase in revenues. So,
I guess what
that
we're
remains to be seen what's going to happen. I think that we should, you know, we're on the hook already. We should see what's going to happen and follow it very closely. And,
Yeah.
and if indeed that those revenues are increasing and covering that, could be a good thing. And we also ought to look into having other people that are recovering, like Bernardston, chip in some money for this too. They're certainly not gonna do it
Yeah.
this year,
Yeah.
but maybe in the future.
They mentioned, last night when I mentioned it, didn't say it's a trial basis for a year. I think is what
Right.
their understanding is.
Right.
But good deal for them. What can they lose? Of course, over there though, their firemen are first responders. So they claim that every call doesn't necessarily mean that the Northfield ambulance is having to respond. But you'd have to have a pretty quick assessment when you arrive on the scene to make that decision, I would
They
think.
do it by the person who receives a 911 call.
Yes, they make the judgment as to what it's going to
So
be.
they'll let them, whoever's going to receive that call, they tell them, and
Yeah,
you
that's
only
true.
need
They
this or
did say
this or
that.
this.
So, well, let's not make it. We'll put this for the end then, and thinking about it. Was
Are
it?
we going to add in, excuse me a minute, we have X that we've already have to have, like insurance and all that. Are we adding in these items to know what our bottom line is and how far we're going or anything? Is anybody good at math?
Yeah, it's meant to add up on the sheet there.
The
That's
40
what-
is in here?
Yes, the EMS and the sewer requests are in there and reflected
Okay.
in the request column. So,
So
There
now-
weren't very many that had increases this year. That weren't. I mean, that was the one that stood out as totally different this year. The others had slight increases, postage or things like that.
Enterprise fund is down below.
correct, it's on that first sheet.
Is it in this?
And I can
I'm confused.
I can go get the enterprise funds printed out if you
That's
all want
okay.
those.
Which one are we talking about now? This
You're
one?
looking at
There's three
you're
of them.
looking at this sheet here. 'Cause it's you've got
That's
the
right.
revenue from the enterprise funds and the expenses from the enterprise funds.
2000.
Or the right backwards, revenue and the expenses.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Again, it's broken out in
This, Bonnie, you got that one?
Yes.
Okay. Let's
The
all take a
enterprise.
look at that then. So he's got the actual for 19 and then the requests for 20. And then what it is, then we'll have to come up with what we're going to recommend. So this would show you the difference, the increase, the amount to be raised one way or the other. Now, these show that they went down. Oh, I see. Okay, that's a difference. But that's not just the omnibus. That's everything in there. I get it.
correct, and not everything is in there at the moment, so.
Okay. Now this is. Okay. And this one here shows the difference between this is the omnibus,
Correct.
and this shows the
The omnibus.
request and the compared to last year's. And he's put in the recommended as the same as last year for now, for working document, or did you change it?
For the payroll, what's in the
Only
recommend.
payroll.
it's
Everything
only
else is
reflect-
zero.
Everything else is zero because y'all
Yeah.
haven't told
We
me
haven't
to
done
move it.
anything yet.
I see, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
So we
Okay.
have to add up what we're going to put in here.
Well, we can scan down through there and see the increases, any increase from last year's appropriation and this year's request. And, so,
And I would comment that this is a working document, so if anything I can do to make it, those kinds of questions, like is there an increase or a decrease from the previous year, and make those kinds of things stand out.
yeah, that's what we look for in the omnibus, what the change was,
So
so,
I can,
okay.
Well, so, you moved over the salaries that you know. That's what these numbers on here in the recommended. Has that taken into account the years and the steps and longevity?
correct.
So that's already in there. So these
This is-
figures are actual except for any kind of raise we did.
that is
Okay,
correct. It
thank
includes
you.
the step
Okay.
increases for this
Okay,
fiscal
yeah.
year.
That's
All
good.
right.
That's
2020.
Yeah. Now, there was a $400 increase in the treasurer expense, But I think, see, I'm thinking back, the ones seemed perfectly justified when they talked to us.
I think that we looked at most of them as far as doing that. We didn't see anything that was really glaring except for the $40,000. Everything
That was pretty much it, yeah.
That was my
and
big
or it
feeling.
was justified by the person or
Yeah.
that brought the budgets before us.
So if we go to the bottom line of total, we're only up $3,000.
Yeah, but it doesn't include any COLAs or anything.
I understand.
At the last
go
page
for-
you're talking about?
On
Juan?
the first page, it says total for that first page.
Just
We're
to-
up
to
$3,000.
Yeah.
just compare to that.
Only about 3,100,
Yeah.
little less than that.
So if we
Yeah.
round it to 3, so we can add easy.
And then, but I think Dan's right. The only one that stood out in my mind is the one we've already discussed. That I didn't think of others that really were,
Most of the other budgets came in either level funded or hardly any increase. This is
Yes.
the only one that had any significance at all that I can recall. Most of the other ones were.
last week when we talked to ZBA, it was my understanding and with her that she didn't have a justification for the increase in the operating budget, we'll call it. And it was more concerned about the computer.
Exactly.
And that hasn't really been figured out, has it?
I think Andrea was handling that
Yeah, do we?
with the computer account
Yeah.
and stuff. So I sent an email to you and Andrea saying that, just to confirm that we were taking that. I think she was, somebody put it in for $300 more and we were leaving it level. Yeah, okay. So, well, why don't we then,
But is it a special article or is it just part of their operating?
don't think it was
which are you
The
talking about?
ZBA printer.
The-
I think they added that as a capital expense.
That would be out of the, we've got a computer account and that sort of thing.
So it's going in the computer account under the TA, not the ZBA article for a thing.
Right, right.
That's how it's in here?
Correct, there wasn't any increase, I don't believe.
Right.
Say it again, please.
I do not believe there was an increase in the ZBA request, but I'd have to look, let me double check.
But the 300 in the computer account.
Correct, that's just,
There is a $300 in the increased here.
all right, well then I
Where
didn't,
did you find ZBA?
Under ZBA
Second,
expenses.
first
Right here.
page,
First page, okay.
I didn't.
Yeah,
do
well,
it.
yeah,
about
Yeah.
2/3 of the way down,
Oh.
4150 to 4450.
I'll
Yeah,
make that adjustment then,
So
we wanted,
correct.
we're gonna take that out and move it to, okay. And that way it's labeled a town thing, they worked this room out, right?
okay, that's that one.
And so where's the computer services and supplies? That's about halfway across.
Yeah. That one's up, you see, almost,
But that's where it goes, correct?
no, this 300 was an operating budget type of thing. Remember, there are 2 sheets to their
Right.
request, and that was increasing their budget by 300. And we're
And then they
removing
wanted a
that because
special.
she didn't know what it was for really.
Okay,
And then this capital list on the second sheet was
The
what was
printer.
the, and then Andrea was gonna look into whether they needed a computer and printer,
Or just a
or
printer.
printer, I guess it was.
so we're not doing anything for their capital request.
The $300 that they were looking for was from $200 to $500, and it was in other purchases. And then on the back, the cap with the printer, none of those equaled the $300.
And she
increase.
didn't know, so
And she
we're-
wasn't, yeah.
Okay, so we're deleting that, we're not putting any extra money in for a printer.
No,
Okay, right? Okay,
okay, so given that, I think what we're talking about is, well, there's the 2 enterprise funds. And he's spoken about that. So we're talking about
no debt,
articles. And let's go back to last week. She had given us some. And again, we have to get, like, say, tentative approval and then see how the figures come out, you know? So,
This is the thing.
So the,
what she had last week was,
so what she had last week is summarized on this sheet. What it doesn't include is the ones that were handed out tonight.
right?
And the
Okay,
enterprise
all right,
guide-
that's easier to work from then, isn't
Is
it?
that correct? It's here.
So you're talking about capital articles.
Yeah. That, first one is that technology invoices, that was that old bill. But I don't think we have any.
Have to pay, we have no choice on that.
No. So we need that in there.
So that's what we're looking at now is the gray, right? This one.
80,
Correct.
80, almost 8,600, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's right. And then,
The administrative technology,
Omnibus. Enterprise is not.
35, that's,
35,000.
that was to get to the new system of computers.
Yeah, instead of a computer,
Yep.
just she had a term for that, so it would just be basically
This slim client.
slim clients, yeah.
Okay. Right.
And then the cloud platform.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what most communities are doing, once the cloud platform, instead of having all the servers here.
The audit, we got that one.
Okay, that one, yeah, she said, technology updates and improvements, and that was to migrate town hall to a full server environment. I would like to see us support that if possible. Anybody objecting to that one?
Are you going on this?
I'm going by the
Yeah,
sheet
yeah.
that Bill prepared,
Yeah.
plus
That's
I
what-
went back to
yeah, okay.
what she gave us last year
Okay,
for a little more detail.
Yep.
And I think she based it on a proposal she had from Guardian,
Right,
the company that
you're
was
on number 3.
Actually from a different company.
a different company now. Okay, that's better. Competition, that's good. Okay, so that's the 35. Then we're down to
Cloud.
5,000 for the cloud
Yeah.
platform. That was another one.
Well, that kind of goes hand in hand with the technology platform, technology improvements.
You know,
And what that was is to get off-site.
Yeah.
instead of having a server here,
Yeah.
and have an
Right.
offsite, which
Yeah.
also would be more secure.
Because what they do now is they pull, it's on site here, they pull it as far as to it, and you know, if the place burns down, if somebody doesn't pull that, then we lose all of our, but with the cloud, you can maintain that.
But
Okay.
the cloud
Information.
service platform was that government interface. It was the transparent government.
Oh,
with a
yes,
dashboard, that's what
yes,
that particular one
Yes.
is referring to.
that's where, yes.
Now, I made a note on that, whether we need that right now or whether it would be coming up in December or later on, something like that. I mean, I'm not saying we don't need it or anything like that. I just say, do we need to fund it this early? Do you remember?
I mean,
anything?
you would think that would be
They
done on
said
this
it might not go into effect till halfway through the year,
Yeah,
so it'd be
less than $5,000.
less than $5,000.
yeah.
So it's
I-
just actually gonna sit there, is
Yeah.
what she was saying. It's gonna sit there until it was used, as long as we agreed with the concept.
Yeah. I wrote down 3,500 a year. Apparently, this
That's
is the initial.
That's afterwards.
Correct,
Right.
after $1,500.
That's after
setup
this
fee.
coming year.
Yes.
So there's a $1,500 setup fee for them to make the
Right.
connection to your databases, so that
the
they can
35.
share that information out there.
Okay.
And then an annual subscription fee, I think of $3,500.
I suppose if it's going to take place during the year, even though it's 6 months away, this is the time to come up with the money for it. Because if you wait till a special, then you're depending on what money you might have available.
Well, Also depends on how quickly too she's gonna move forward with our other technology buy. It would be nice to do it, see, together as one, it'd probably be more efficient than that, do new technology and then wait for a cloud and the transparency.
Well, the thing is with this, the transparency. The thing is, because you get calls every day for stuff that a lot of times just right on the website that people can get it. So it takes away from other people's regular jobs to try to do this. Whereas it's out there and people can go search for it themselves and get
I
it
agree. I'm
themselves.
gonna have less free. Request for freedom of information.
Hopefully you'll have it out there as far as
Out
that.
there.
And
I agree with having it out there. It's
For
especially
example,
open,
Beth,
the-
now that you've got tax information, property information online, has that,
Yeah, it's reduced phone calls quite. I mean, not that I had an abundance of calls, but I don't get
yeah,
nearly
see,
maybe one a month. Honestly, it's very sporadic.
yeah, okay.
But then we have to.
Shall we say yes tentatively on this?
Yes, I agree with
I
that.
would agree with it.
Okay,
I would recommend it.
Yeah.
all right, the next one is 16,000, that's an audit for this year.
And that's
For the-
something we need to have. So
Absolutely.
That's,
to
we
recommend.
Yeah.
need that.
Now, it turned out, we pointed out that we did appropriate money last year, so there, she's got one gonna go, and then this will be number 2 and number 3. Yes, we definitely need that. The OPEB, I think that's to tell the town how much,
We need to put away.
yeah, right. So I think we need to get going on that, and I wanna put money into OPEB as well this year. The town hall kitchen, that I would hold until we see what we've got available. I do know that if you're cooking meals and so forth, I know churches and so forth have had to do that hood improvement, that's a law now. So this is the first we'd heard of any kitchen improvement. First I'd heard of any kitchen improvement.
Well, we heard it for years.
You know
But
what?
we really
Nothing
didn't do anything.
specific though, yeah.
Yeah, but then we
Now they're
have,
getting specific.
now it's saying it's the law, so,
We got
Yeah.
a lot of laws we have to
Yeah.
follow.
and, well, they're enforcing it then, let's put it that way.
Well, shall we say, I mean, okay, this is, this estimate came, I understood from the maintenance person, am I right?
I believe so.
Yeah, that's what I think. Shall we say yes if there's money available? Just, I'll put a question mark there for now.
I put a question,
Okay.
I agree.
because we have to figure out
All
still.
right.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm hoping as far as doing that. We're doing, I think, the last phase of the electrical. If there's any money left in that particular part, we repurpose it for something like this in a
Yeah.
special town meeting if we have one in the
Yeah.
fall, which I think we probably will anyway.
I think it's important that we get the electrical done.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Get
Okay,
that complete.
now, the next on his list is
Carpet.
elementary school carpet or tile, 3 classrooms, 9,000. What I've got that paper she turned in, completed projects for 19. Replace front entrance of south building. They've already got the money, okay.
This is just
For
sort of like
2020,
saying
carpet or
revolving.
tile, 3 classrooms, 9,000.
Yeah,
Second year of funding for electrical upgrades and communication replacement, 150,000.
Yeah, that,
That's
100
the
budget
next
for
two.
electrical and the $50,000 for the upgrade in the communications.
Yeah,
Because they
And
can't
now
communicate.
there's
That's the
159,000. I think it, from what we heard, it's pretty important to get that communication system.
I think it's huge.
You know,
especially in this day and age. So I would
make that near the top if we have to
I
start
think so.
prioritizing.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, and then,
open space is 20 grand.
And then an update is 4.
yes,
And we keep moving them forward.
but this, next one, is that one from last week? I don't have it.
From
The open
Open
space.
I don't,
here.
I didn't have a copy of
I don't
that.
recall that.
I don't think we even discussed it last week.
Oh, yeah, he
You did?
came. Jerry Wagner came.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Is that,
Yeah, he
was
came
that
and
the
talked.
open space budget then?
I thought the only thing we talked,
No, he talked.
He had a smaller amount for an open space budget.
Oh, budget, yeah, but this is.
I don't,
That's for something.
To have, yeah, so if a 61A option comes along, they can start building up the fund to be able to do something with it, because they don't really have any funds if somebody came.
no, but I'm not in favor
Is
of.
that for like first right of refusal kind of thing? Okay.
well,
Yeah, it says
Because we
right on
had
there,
some,
61.
we've
we
had
had
two.
that last
That's
week
what it
about
was.
on the road not
Yes.
far from where.
4 Mile.
Yeah, 4 Mile Brook Road.
But
Fowler property.
so far, I've never seen the town exercise their option under this. Now,
Yeah.
Because we have no money.
that's right, the argument would be, well, if we had money, how much more open space can we afford to set aside in this town? That's another thought.
Rather than open space, I think would be, they've tried to get some sort of playground or baseball field or that sort of thing. I would prefer that it be dedicated to that kind. If we're going to dedicate it, I would rather have it that way. And if a 30-acre parcel of ag land came available and the town wanted to do it and they had the money, you could go for that, but it's under that option. But like you say, Lois, I don't know how much more open we actually
Yeah,
want
here's the open space
to. That should be
from Wagner's request, and it was
1,400.
1,400 for his budget request. And then 5-year capital request was down at the bottom. And so he's put $20,000 a year in for the next 5 years for Chapter 61 option. So there's $100,000 in 5 years. At this time, I don't think we'll have the money to cover that type of thing. I think we've got other things that are more important. You agree that we should?
As the town, again, I'm asking because of lack of, now, has he ever purchased any Chapter 61 property?
No.
No,
No.
No.
And most of the time, it's undeveloped land, like I said, that would
it's ag or forestry.
A lot of it's forest,
Yeah.
basically.
Ag or
be,
forestry.
would cost a great deal to,
If it was like right down Center Village kind of thing, then it would be foolish not to buy it. But
that would be foolish, but like you said, 4 Mile Brook Road, this is like, again, who knows? But there's a lot of people that have Chapter 61 land, and every time, again, I guess it's sold, it gives the town as well.
Yeah,
First
town has,
so
town has.
So is this
first
something
refusal.
that we're not going to recommend at this time?
I
don't see it at
I
this
don't
time.
see that we can do it. But I do think that this, you remember what the OSRP stood for? I don't, but I think that was
Open
something.
space and recreation plan.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that is something we should do. We'll see when we add these things up. Now that, you said, is through last week.
That's last week.
So
Now-
it adds up to 272,799 at this point. We've said absolutely yes on.
The he had a total of
40,000.
he had a total of 292, and we've only taken out
Right. So we actually taking it out.
60,200.
We're going to actually take that 40 out.
Sounds like, yeah.
Okay, so 232. 200 off.
60,400,
9.
wasn't it?
Yes. 60,200.
200. Okay. Tentative for now. Where did the 3 cents come from?
3 cents. It's 3
Technology
cents.
invoices. Okay. All right. So now, tonight, we have received, let's see.
We have police, we have 2 police,
Fire.
What's
we have
this?
fire, we have 2 fire, and we have highway.
Well, what's
department.
this recycling one that we got last week?
That was because they're gonna be negotiating a new agreement, aren't they, about the price of recyclables? Because
Yes.
their contract is coming up for
That's what
exploration.
that number 2 is there, that's zero.
But that's not.
That's not a money item.
It's not money at
That's
this
just
time,
not
but it's
paid.
just,
It's a con-
that'd be something they'd be
Yeah.
Yeah,
negotiating.
that's something,
Right.
so it's not a
Okay.
money article, so. All right. Which one do you want to take up first? Look at the highway department?
So we've got tonight, well, we've all got them in different order probably.
Well, just.
First of all, I've got the scuba tanks.
That's
from the
fire.
department.
Okay.
It's fire.
And that, Skip talked to us about that. That's 40,000. But isn't that gonna be something that's gonna be easier to upgrade and maintain?
This is correct.
This kind, yes.
Yeah. So that's why it's a little more of an investment.
I wonder how often we use those.
Every time you have a fire, as far as.
Every time they have, that's part of their standard equipment, they have
Yeah.
to wear it at the scene to, if
Okay.
they use it.
Standard equipment's all
Yeah.
I
I got.
do not, I just got them.
Same.
So that answers
That's
that.
fine.
Otherwise, they would have been on this worksheet.
That's okay. I'd like to see us fund those if we could.
Yeah, for their safety, yeah.
That's a life-saving thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's, even on the news, when you see any fire department, city or otherwise, that's something they have. And then I've got, is there another by the fire department?
Yes, $50,000 for the public
$50,000.
works.
There it is.
Don't we already
For
have
free
money in
cash.
there?
There is money in the account.
How much
I
is
don't know
it?
exactly how much is still current in there, but.
Yeah, that, I thought I brought that. The
Yeah.
balances that Phil gave us, I have some questions on some of the fire accounts there.
Now, just so you know, on these articles we ran, they do tell you where the source is coming from. The fire department is raising appropriate for the scuba.
Mhm.
The next one is coming out of free cash.
Well, wait a minute. We
Well, no,
haven't-
there's
Oh, no, it
a
isn't.
transfer.
No, it
No,
isn't.
there's- everything is in there.
That's true.
Yeah, we
Everything
haven't
is
come up
in
with
there.
anything.
And then the
on
motion
yeah.
will
Source
last.
of funds yet. But on the fire department's accounts, the ladder truck, and he asked us if that was still available, and that's 350,000 that's there. They're waiting to find a used one that's suitable, I believe. But there is the survey that you just mentioned. There's $3,925,
That's in there.
and nothing's been used yet this year.
Were they waiting for the
They had to do borings or something.
Borings.
Which the borings were not, as far as I know, have not been.
so that money is allocated for that, probably, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yep.
So now, the next step is what they're looking for money for.
There's been no money at all. I thought we did
I
60,000
thought we did
last
last
year
year
or
at
something.
town hall. Didn't we do some money last year at
Or something?
I have to look and see.
Nothing's showing here.
Yeah, the originally was appropriate, I believe it was around $68,000.
For what?
There was a consultant hired.
Yeah.
That was a consultant that
So-
basically
that
didn't
what
do
it was?
anything for you, did he?
Well, that was.
Yeah.
They didn't have any of that.
But there was some billed services, some of that was billed, that was used.
So there's still some money in that
The
fund.
question, then there was some other funds, again, the issues of the boring, you know, who did all the cost, the study of the borings, and
But
all
wasn't
that.
that in the prior year?
Yeah.
But how much
but-
money is left from the consultant job?
That I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't see anything here on
You
it.
don't see an account for it, or?
It'll be on the last page usually.
This is all the fire accounts right here.
Yeah, but would that be under special article?
Oh. Well,
I personally don't think we should allot anything to it until they do something. That committee's been inactive for an extremely long period of time. And if they can get, I'm gonna say it, their act together, maybe I'd be more willing to give them funds. But they've had funds to do work and that work hasn't been done. And I don't wanna allocate $50,000 to it if they have they're not ready to do it and they're not gonna do it.
We don't even know the results from it.
Well,
We need to know results.
okay, I think we've got to look at two sides of this. We need to do something about the facility. Granted, I agree with you, they nothing has happened for quite a long time. The last meeting was in September. I
September
think
was
we
the
said.
last meeting, yep.
Yeah.
And we've had none scheduled so far.
And the whole summer went by and no borings were done.
They were supposed to be done in the early fall.
Fall.
The borings were supposed to have been accomplished, so this way we'd have the borings, the results, so this would help with the next stage, which would have been the design. Because again, the design would be predicated on what,
Right.
was
but we
found
have
and so
none of
forth.
that yet.
and none of that, and we're already looking now, March is almost over, doesn't leave us, any real time to get the results in. It's not
So
something that can be
this
done.
this $50,000 is only for site work as far as doing that. If they don't know the borings, and these $50,000.
There's no need for it. I agree with Bonnie, if the money is allocated, isn't being spent, the things are being accomplished, then I wouldn't give additional money. The other thing is, as you would say, we're also supposed to have been an inspection of the building, which,
Yeah. Let's not cut our nose off to spite our face, so.
I would put it at the bottom of my list.
I was here today for a meeting and came upstairs. Maybe something was happening today about this.
Conversation, things may move forward.
Yes.
Yeah, they were here.
Depending who was
Skip
waiting
here.
to see her.
yeah. Well, again,
Well, I would say that if something transpires, we could find the money somewhere and maybe we have a special town meeting somewhere somehow.
Or maybe next week. No, she won't be here next week either. I better ask her.
Well, on our priority list, we'll just kind of put this.
I would push it down the
On the
list.
bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a very important thing to do,
Yeah.
but I think we have to know that we're gonna get results from something.
And I think too, by saying this again, let's see the concrete results with the money that's been spent.
Just like the
Again,
EMTs.
It's like,
Okay. In these balances at the end of last month, I did look it up about the fire department accounts, as I said. And interestingly, there is money in an account for station floor / apron repair.
That's
Yeah.
3 years old. That's
And
3
they
years old.
decided not to do it because of this new public
Correct.
facilities. Why would
Because
we
that
put
would've-
money into
1,400.
yeah.
1,400.
1,400?
It won't go far, but
But
we're concerned about the underneath of the floor, which becomes the ceiling of the lower level, and pieces dropping off.
That could help pay for an engineer coming in and paying for it. We could read.
Again, those were things we asked, requested an engineer or a building inspection, but again, as you saw it, those have not been done, and I guess it would be nice that we get maybe a report from Andrea in the next, hopefully,
Yeah,
where it stands, if that's been accomplished or not.
I'll see.
That might help us make financial decisions down the road.
Yeah. So I had forgotten that money was there, so.
Yeah.
there's money for painting.
See, we do usually.
Yeah, there was money they put off certain,
They
But
got
they
paid.
haven't. Did they? I know.
Yeah.
Or they're doing it.
they put money, they were looking to see
School building.
the cupola, they were
Maybe-
looking to do 2 cupolas, the schools
School,
and the
right.
fire
Right,
department.
the public, the public building, when Kathy Wright and
Yes,
Chad,
yes,
they
yes.
came and
Yeah.
said they painted both cupolas.
Yes, they did.
Right,
fire
so that's,
station
it's been
and-
done.
That's been-
Okay, another request here is, tonight,
Who is-
is highway department, no, another fire department.
No, there's no more fire department.
One more,
That was the engineering.
Those were the 2
consulting,
fires,
okay.
right?
Highway department
Highway
or a
is
truck,
for,
3/4 ton truck. It's replacing one. It's
$60,000 for a 3/4 ton pickup truck for the highway department. I wish you were here because I'd like to know how many vehicles they have now. And this,
wasn't this?
does this a replacement?
this
We
is
don't
to
know.
replace one. I thought. Let me
Yeah, I
see.
thought it was a silver.
I mean, we've gone from, used to have this, we call it the smaller trucks, and then we're gonna have all large trucks. We've
They've been
gone to
using
that
it.
pretty
Wow.
much now. and now 3/4 ton pickup truck.
3/4 tons are pretty much the standard for, no one uses the lightweight because that's mostly up, the half tons is mostly for
Right.
Yeah.
regular, individuals in light duty use.
And they, the
3/4 tons are basically, that's the standard level where they start with trucks for service vehicles for,
yeah, now, you're calling it a pickup.
yeah.
How big a pickup is that? And that's
Quite
3/4 ton.
Three-quarter.
Is that dual wheel?
Don't,
No, it's not.
usually a 3/4 ton is gonna be a regular, it's gonna be four-wheel, heavier duty vehicle, basically with an 8-foot bed is pretty much a standard 3/4 ton pickup.
Pickup,
And
yeah.
I'll be honest with you, $60,000 today for that is in the ballpark. You know
Yeah,
what I mean,
yeah.
for that. The only question is it gonna be gas or diesel? Diesel would be a more expensive truck versus a gasoline. So again, we don't have the particulars of what they're, more specifics of what they're buying.
And again, I'm not sure which, is this replacing the F-550 truck?
We
It was-
have a list here of the highways.
I'm
Yeah.
looking at it here. I don't, the only,
What does it say, Bonnie, on that?
It gives us a list. Oh, is there a 3/4 ton here?
Is that on the capital plan?
Can I see that?
Capital account.
'Cause it
John
came with
Deere
a title today.
International Dump Truck, 400,
maybe that might be an old one, so hold on.
So,
2/19/19.
I'm looking at this right here, capital for 2020. What is that?
There's a Ford dump truck, 2008.
This is just the years he wants them replaced. This doesn't tell us how old they
Can I get that?
Right.
Yeah, well, it does. It tells you on the side if you look at it. But the $60,000 one.
I don't see
one
that I've
is-
got that.
It's a trailer, cargo.
I don't see that I've got this.
oh,
This
2006.
this is 2020.
Got it here.
So I
That
think
was
it's
a
2000.
capital plan? Wait a
yeah.
minute, let's see.
But I think it might be, yeah. Is
I
it
don't
a
have
Chevy
any
that he
of
wants? What is his?
See, this doesn't make sense to what he's looking for.
But this is the
Boss.
F450 dump truck is 2008.
Oh, maybe he had.
The
it
only
last
one
year.
that,
Did he not get it last year? Is that what? 2019 he had asked
he asked for a dump truck
for. Last year.
last year.
Some sort of,
Because it's a F50, 550 truck. Was purchased in 2012, so it's 7 years old. He asked last year for 45,000.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah. But it's not $60,000 to that same one, huh?
well, he's probably bumped it up because it's gone up and maybe wants diesel.
$15,000.
That's a lot, but.
But usually, forgive me, that's on the lower side though.
Yeah,
It's a
for
lot.
a 3/4.
Yeah, but then what they're gonna do, yeah. they're gonna-
Transfer,
Yeah,
they're just getting
Yeah.
the ladder chassis right, basically getting a
I
cabin.
think he did something.
What I'd like to see is when he does these, is some of these that are if they're not usable, let's sell them out.
That's a Ford 350.
So we picked up a title for a bucket truck today, one of those bucket trucks at the top.
They still not needed changes.
You picked one up?
Yep, picked up the
20
title.
is nothing. 40.
They're getting rid of
That
it.
was it, okay.
The bucket truck they're getting rid of, is that the
think,
one
yeah,
that's
it's
shared with other
2020?
towns?
Yeah.
I mean, 2000? The 10-year-old dump truck, huh? Maybe?
2012, I think.
Well, we get a 2000
Dump truck.
dump truck, bucket truck you just said, right?
But that's not up till
I guess, I
bucket truck.
don't see that I have it.
600,000.
How can okay.
What
The
is
thing
that?
is, 3/4 tons.
This is what we were
usually
given,
used with,
these were capital plans, but
uh,
basically I see nothing, the only thing I see that's even close
Yeah.
is this one right
I
here.
don't have a copy
No,
of
you
that,
got
I
both.
guess. Thank you.
450
That
to
was what
550s,
she was talking
yeah.
about, 550 for the.
3/4 ton would not
I
be.
think it's a 550, right?
You need at least that for.
Well, it's for 45,000, so I'm thinking that's the one he's talking about. That's the only thing I have on my list
I don't,
here.
it's not there then, is it?
Well, it's there, but it's a different price than what I see on that.
Yeah, but I don't think.
This is
they
a
have
trailer.
550 down there.
To go to a
Place
three,
at
I'm
550
looking
to
up
go to
here.
a 3/4 ton doesn't make any sense.
See,
yeah.
he had it looking for a lot more than he's not gonna get.
I think it's something we have to ask for clarification.
Yeah, that I agree with, because again,
Yeah,
Because we waited a long time to do these and all our memories are not remembering the same thing.
Wow.
yeah. We want more
Okay, so we're gonna
information.
clarify that?
yeah.
That can be clarified by the,
TA that talked to
if there's something that can be clarified, are we gonna support a new vehicle?
Yep, I agree with you. What's it replacing, what specific its
Yeah.
use and that?
He has it in the request that he
Oh.
talked to us about.
Okay, so this is different, okay.
3/4 ton truck, $60,000, 2020, top priority.
Okay, so this is bogus, the
Yeah,
one
we
I
did have
had.
that, that was the number one top
Okay.
priority.
All right.
That's what we.
Yeah, he brought it in as far as what I had basically was from last
Okay,
year.
all right.
So,
Then if he specifically has it there, then
This
it's-
says
That would be-
2020, so it's just, this is updating it here.
yeah.
what's it replacing? Just
Doesn't
how-
say.
It didn't
Oh, it
say.
doesn't say how old.
The only
it-
thing I'm thinking of would be the 550.
I think we need to make sure that if something's replaced, get rid of the other one, not just keep accumulating vehicles over there.
Unless they're using it for
And
parts.
who did,
I don't know where that came from.
I think Andrea gave us these. This was just the beginning from what she had as capital plans. She said, I don't know, but this is what I
Okay.
have found. I
All
think
right.
that's what this is.
She was trying to program to avoid the
Started.
big years of 600,
Right,
700,000
that's what this was.
expenditures.
She was
So
taking all
Tommy
the
did not give
requests.
us this.
Yeah.
This is just info
Because I had that
down the road
for,
to keep us on track.
I had
She
that
took
and I had
all the
police
requests that were accompanying the
and fire.
budgets.
Right,
Okay, all right, that's
so we
good.
can see it's kind of like what Hank wanted.
So do we need more clarification on that, or do you just want to know what it's replacing?
You know what, as long as it's replacing a similar vehicle, I'd just like to know how old, what we're replacing, and is it a similar thing?
Okay,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
all right.
But it's a yes if we get that info?
You want to
Yes.
know gasoline or diesel and.
Gasoline or diesel, and,
What
what's it
it-
exactly replacing,
Yeah,
and that, so we can judge, clearly what's
okay,
what's going, and also how old the other vehicle they're getting rid of is. But I
Okay.
agree, once we have those information, be a yes, if that's provided.
now, the next one, we received two others tonight, I believe, or more than that, let's see. All right, here is, police department is a cruiser, that's been on the capital plan right along, I believe. So that is, how much?
52,000.
Yeah, 52. I think we,
I just want to, as clarification too to this, because I still keep track of what's going on with cruisers. The 2020 model that's coming out, the Ford Explorer Pursuit version, is a complete change from
That's
the
what,
the
Yeah.
current
Right.
vehicle.
So you can't
here.
use some.
They're going from front-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive, they're redesigning, they're going to rear-wheel.
the cage isn't
Is
gonna
this an
fit.
all-wheel drive though?
It's gonna be, the current Explorers use front-wheel drive, and they have automatic, if they detect
Oh.
slippage, go to all-wheel drive. This one, instead of front-wheel drive, they're going back to rear-wheel drive,
Really?
but it will have the same, if it detects slippage, it will go into all-wheel drive.
Oh, one of the reasons, and I understand that some of the equipment cannot be retrofit.
Transfer.
Correct,
Right.
because it
Yeah.
is a complete
Didn't he tell us
redesign,
that-
and again, we faced that when we got rid of the Crown Victorias to go to Explorers. Many of the equipment, unfortunately, it's kind of wasteful, but there isn't a choice. If it doesn't fit, doesn't work, you gotta replace it. So I'm just saying, the vehicle itself is not gonna be 52. They're running right now in the high 30s to low 40s.
It's all the other stuff.
It's gonna be the supplemental equipment that has to go with it.
The prices keep going up.
Oh, everything, the
So-
equipment is ridiculously expensive.
So this is a replacement
Yeah,
for
Yeah.
one, keeping on schedule like we have in the past.
Yeah.
so
So is that a recommendation?
I'd
So
say
yes.
so.
I think so.
Okay.
We
And-
agreed with the replacement schedule, so.
Yes, we
Yeah.
did.
Yes. And the other one for the police is,
Radio.
Radios,
we got $10,018, two mobile 800 megahertz police band radios, and all necessary appurtenances required thereof. I think that's essential to the communication system.
Especially, go ahead. What about my apology?
I know that no decision has been made by the county or the state or anything like that yet. I'm wondering how does the fire communicate and how do EMTs communicate? They haven't asked for any of these kind of monies. Explain the radio system better to me, because I'm not questioning the fact that it needs an upgrade, but how come nobody else does? Because we've given, Vermont Yankee used to give us money and everybody get equal amount for the updates on their radios and all that kind of stuff. And we sort of lost track of who's got radios and how, and I
Well,
haven't heard the others.
I think the police department just getting the jump on the other two, basically.
Well, I
It's
think
gonna be- it's gonna
Skip
be
explained
tough.
it, that,
I'd be very surprised if next year we didn't have
yeah,
that same thing for EMT and fire.
I think we'll spread it out this way. And I think Skip explained it. He said your police department is using these radios every day, whereas they are not.
Okay.
And so that's why I think this will spread it out.
Well, the other thing too is we're gonna be purchasing a new cruiser, you might as well, like I said, you're gonna put in a used radio that you're gonna pull out. There's the additional expense of purchasing and then installing a new one, which will also probably require different antennas, all sorts of,
Well,
And he
this
needs
isn't
to
just for the
communicate with
cruiser.
other departments,
yeah.
school and other police departments. I mean,
If they go with a new
Yeah.
system, is any of this sellable?
Well, this would be used with it, because if they go to it, they're gonna do an 800 megahertz system, aren't they?
Right.
Yeah,
That's right, it would go with it.
Yes.
You're right, you're right,
yes.
okay.
Because we discussed that they were gonna be
That
compatible.
would be compatible to the new
Yes.
system, okay.
Yeah,
all right,
So,
we're going to
got
say
it.
okay for now on that.
yep.
So the only one we've set a tentative on is the fire department, no, the public safety.
Public safety.
Public
bill.
safety,
That's
yeah.
the only one, okay.
And,
Okay.
okay, for those five, yeah.
Okay, we've talked about the operating budget, and we've talked about the articles that we received last week, and we talked about the ones we received tonight.
Yeah.
And Phil, have you gotten what you need to put together, to update what you've given us so far?
So the only thing with those choices for the
Yeah,
capital, for the warrants is how you're gonna pay for them.
okay.
I'm not quite
Why
sure.
don't you, we'll say to start with, let's have him put these things in and then see if we have to take them out.
That's why I didn't know if we had a calculator that we could add them up and have a rough now. Okay.
But
It's in
then,
my workbook, and I can bring my laptop in
Sure.
with,
Oh,
yes.
so I can do it on the
Okay.
fly easier, but I didn't think of that.
I
Yeah.
don't want to keep saying that to you.
It's okay, it's okay. I
But
did
remember
this
how
time.
she used to,
Oh, yeah,
yeah. Well, now, what he's saying is this sheet, and we need to talk about the source of money.
could I interject one question
Sure.
before we start this whole process? When the building utilization committee, the building utilization came in, they had talked about this $150,000, that they'd really like to be able to do it, to make sure they can do it this year, because it's a very narrow window of when they can work in the summer
Yes.
because of all that.
Yeah.
I just had a thought when they were talking, is it at all possible for us to give them some money from current end of the year free cash so they could go out to bid in May, right after town meeting? We've done that before, that they could go out to bid, find out how much it is, so they can get everything lined up when school closes, so it can happen faster this summer. So I was just,
Yeah, yes, but I'm looking now, Bonnie, to see what they have left in some accounts
Would
here
that be
too.
enough for them to go out and, because they would be assured of the funds? To,
say it again, please. It would-
if it's
but
approved at town meeting.
they can't start till July
July
1st.
I know they can't start.
See, they can put bid, ask for
but they
bids,
can
They
certainly
can't do
ask for-
but they
anything.
can't award.
They can't do anything. I mean, they can put all the knowledge together, but you can't go out to bid.
Right,
If
right,
you're
they
talking
can
about
go out
bids
there,
in
but they
July
can get
1st, right?
everything.
But if they got the
Yeah,
money
oh, you can't
in
go out.
May,
Yeah.
they could have some money to start the bidding process and get information.
Any new money, it's what you're saying, is July 1st availability. But what you're saying is like, if we used free cash, that could be spent before July
Right,
1st. It's
because
not
they
raised
could
and
start the
appropriate.
day after, the next day, yeah. And
Well,
so if they wanted 150 and they came back and said, to be able to do the beginning process and get it to where we could actually start work the week after school ended, if that works, this is what we'll need.
I think
I
what
think
they,
their window is really very narrow, and if we could help them with that window, because this is a huge project in a very narrow time frame that these guys are going to have to do.
What we've got.
So
there's-
before we started
yeah,
over,
the thing,
I don't think there are any pending bills now because of the time that they do the work. So here's elementary school maintenance is $9,254. Elementary school carpet is $3,800.
they were gonna,
And
they had planned to
petition
use
the
that.
walls, that's
Yeah,
done.
that's-
Using that, yeah.
Can't-
Windows,
did they have anything left over from the electric from last year? Or they,
I think they figured that with this. They were gonna add to it.
7,500.
that's it? Okay. I think if they're gonna do that, they'll look at priorities. Is it more advantageous for them to do the communications, I think? More so than the
Yes.
electrical. But sometimes you go hand in hand. If there's two different.
That's why they
yeah.
labeled it that way. Electrical upgrade and communications, they put it into one, so if one was more, they could do both from this money.
Okay, because I was gonna say,
Cost, the
if
electrical,
communications
they
was the
got that much?
biggest concern, it would be less
Well,
money
I
to
think
get
that-
started with,
If
than
they're-
the
this is-
$100,000.
Continue the project.
They could do the electrical
Yeah.
I do
during,
believe.
So they've got
We
money to
don't know
get
that.
started on this spring.
You'd think so.
I know they were.
On the electrical, here, the balance is, it says NES electrical entry and flooring, that were the capital things last year. They've got 134,000. I mean, I'm not saying they don't need more, but it's something they could be starting.
Well,
on.
that's
But that's-
phase one, I think. So they haven't
Yeah.
started yet?
What was the name of it?
Electrical entry and flooring. Remember the north building they built?
Right, yes.
Because they got CPA money to help with that. I think that might be what it, I don't know when it says
Oh,
entry, I'm just thinking that.
There wouldn't be anything to do with that, that would be entirely separate.
Yeah.
That was
Well,
a
they
different
not
whole.
built-
Oh, maybe that took care of that project then, the
That took
CPA.
care of that,
So
and
this
there's
is
still some
other,
left.
but 134 would get them started this spring.
On the electrical anyway. But they had
As long
two things.
as it can come out of that,
Well, if it's already appropriated,
For
there's no
electrical.
problem.
but we have to make sure that the language and the warrant and all that kind of stuff and the motion can actually go to this kind of project.
Yeah.
Well, this is says electrical in it, right?
But
Right,
in
it's
the
electrical.
description, lots of times it says this is for the north building electrical upgrade, and I don't know that if we can actually take it to put a whole communication electrical
what it said?
upgrade in. I don't know what it is. And I hate to get caught and put our
She didn't have it on a warrant
gentleman over
form, I
there in
don't
a
think.
position
She
I
had
can't
it
do this.
on a narrative type.
So that's, I think that if we could find some information out about that, I think that would be very helpful to the school. We all understand the need for that article and the short window. And if we could do anything to help it faster to get it done, I think would be.
Well, I do like they said, they have 134,000 in the electrical entrance and flooring. It says electrical, so that covers it. Doesn't specify where the electrical is.
I understand that, but when we print up the warrant and all of that, lots of times we have a description for what it's actually for.
Yeah, but this is actually money they can use. This one would be, we'd have to vote on using it. This is actually money that can be used.
I
Yeah,
understand,
okay.
but we
Yeah,
don't know
but
how that money
yeah.
has been
But
allocated in the voting.
what we got is not on a warrant article form. She gave us a narrative on it. And I think, maybe that's what came from the committee last week.
Right.
And so I'm gonna make a note to, can we match the language with the last article so it adds on to it?
Okay. As long as,
Because it is a continuation of the electrical work and so forth.
Yeah, no,
but I don't even
it's
know
rough.
they knew this stuff
it available?
needed to be done when they started the electrical project, is what I'm saying.
Well, they had a consultant.
I just don't want to handcuff them when if we think it's one way and it's really another, that's all I'm.
I'll say
I
that.
don't think they would be saying it was so urgent that they needed to get it now so they can start it because the window was
I
narrow.
think the
If they
urgency was
already had
the
that-
urgency was the communication thing. That was the biggest thing as far as that they weren't able to communicate with some of the classrooms and that.
But they also wanted to both together because once you start communicating,
Yeah, maybe-
some of the electrical doesn't support the new communication system.
Maybe,
We need more
it
info.
doesn't look like communication was in previously, and we
No.
want to add that in. Okay.
2 different wires.
I think we've talked about all, now this goes balances, wasn't it?
Yep.
I think we've talked about all the articles that we have received.
But are
Now,
we in agreement with that thought process?
I'm sorry?
Are we in
If we
agreement
can get money
with
for
the
'em
thought
quicker.
If we can get
process
money for them to sub, because
earlier?
again, I agree with you, the window would be so small. Go put out the bid or request July 1st, and then by the time you get a response or warning, you're already into August.
I tell you, they,
So
it's too late
theoretically,
now.
Yeah, oh, I agree with you.
All right.
theoretically, we're all in agreement with
Yeah.
that philosophy.
No, I agree. I think that's
Okay,
a smart way to get it done.
okay.
The time for these things to go out to bid, as far as doing that, if you want them done in the spring or in the summer, you have to do them in January.
Yeah.
You have to have the bids go out in
Don't
January.
discourage them yet.
No, I'm just saying, I've been doing this for
Yep.
a long time.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Well,
This is,
So you're saying that, like you said earlier, that to get it in out of free cash so that it could be spent if necessary, if it works out that way. Okay.
So does that get us to where we want to be?
Okay. With the warrant being open until next week, I think her thoughts and ours were that anybody that has an article isn't going to wait till the last minute, hopefully, to get it in. So, but we can't finalize things until then. So, I think then we're ready to talk about the COLA. As in the past, what we've done is gone by.
I will
recuse.
Now you're gonna go, but please go back.
I will stop on the phone.
Okay.
Send that.
Won't be long, we won't take
That's all
long.
right.
Um,
We got about-
In the past, we've gone by what the federal raise was for the Social Security beneficiaries and federal retirees, and that was 2.8 this year,
Wow.
effective January 1st. Yeah, well, there've been some years it's been zero,
Yeah.
but we've given something every year, even though that has been zero. So it was. I'm willing to go with a 2.8 this year.
I'd make it 3.
I like to pin it to something instead of just making
2.8
arbitrary.
plus really good working. And I'm thinking of what, we've got a contract at the school and all the things that are going on in that budget at increases. Our people are working hard, they don't get merit raises and all of that. And if we can do it at 3, I'd like to do it at 3. If we can't, we go back, but I don't
know. I just have felt in the past we have a basis for it if we pin it to what something else has been. But
And my thought is, if you always do that, then we shouldn't even, unless we're really, really tight for money, we should just automatically put it in if we always want it on some sort of basis.
well,
So
but we haven't done it when it was zero for those. And there's been a
So-
couple of years that it has been.
So if things are going well and our people have done a really good job and we keep hearing we're some of the lowest paid and we have to be able to.
Well, there again, now that's hearsay. We're the lowest paid. Not
Lots of
always.
people go by hearsay.
Well, the only thing is, like I said, if it's 2.8 or 3, it's still going to be a basis where obviously the school department's going to look for their teachers' contracts in Florida. Obviously, the superintendent's 5% is going to be.
I wasn't gonna go there.
Yeah.
I
I didn't go there. They went there. But no,
I think they settled. I can't be sure, but I know the negotiating committee has met, And I think they have to forward their information on for some approval somewhere. I think they've made it.
You mean they have a tentative agreement? Is that what you're saying?
I'm guessing that.
Okay. Well,
But I don't know what it is, so that doesn't matter. Whatever.
yeah.
So I'd like to work it in at 3 and then have it at 2.8 and see what the difference is when you're doing all your little
Okay,
on the fly. And do it at 2.6. Then we have to go down.
You okay with that?
sure.
I'm on the
Totally.
2 is the best
Just the
2.6.
figures, 2.8 or 3.
Right, I was teasing about 2.6.
Now, I'm trying to think. You've put the steps in here. So
Right.
that would mean that the increase goes on top of the steps, and I don't know that that's the way we've done it. I think we've done the COLA and then the steps. The steps are a fixed amount based on a pay scale.
Correct.
Well, except that once we set a COLA, you go through and update the pay scale chart.
Correct.
So I suppose we'll all come up with the same, whichever. No,
We,
yeah, go ahead, Tony.
get the steps so that they came at the same time on two
Yes.
different occasions, as I recall.
Yeah,
Yep.
we changed it
You know,
because it used to be an awful lot of work for
July
Debbie
1st
every
and then-
month or something.
whatever.
Right.
Yeah, we now.
Uh,
It's,
So some of the, I don't know how it's broken up, but some of the COLA probably, if there is two separate things, one earlier,
is it
one
just
later,
up
some
July
of it
1st
wouldn't
now
be.
for all of
They're all
them?
the same.
Yeah, it's just
So
once
it's
a
all the
year.
same now?
Deb
Once a
worked
year.
it to be all one renewal.
Yeah,
They're all at the same time.
there's a way they figure which ones go
Yeah.
up and which ones.
And so they're just split between odd years and even years, depending upon when you got
Okay,
hired.
okay. But which comes first?
The step is for past work. Because you don't get your step increase
Step is
until you're
for-
served.
Certain length of time.
So you've already, it's what's happened in the past, it's not paying you for what's in advance. So, to me, you'd put it in, you'd reward them, and then you give them the step.
Step on top of
You're
that.
not rewarding them, you're giving them what they've earned,
Yeah.
and then the COLA would be on top.
There's nothing that you've got in procedures or anything that tells which way.
No, but I think you're right. It's basic. I don't think you're necessarily affecting it.
And the
Because,
step raises going at the same time,
yeah.
not when they came on, but
No, but they're July 1st, so they'll be coincide with the COLA now. That was, what, a couple years ago, not more than that.
Right, it was a couple, we talked about it for a couple, yeah.
Yeah,
So come July 1st, you would implement both step changes
yeah,
and the COLA.
yeah.
And you would implement COLA on the current rate at July 1st, right?
That's what I was thinking, but she's saying, well,
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 that's
then
what, that's what you're basically doing. Is you're basically
That's the difference, yeah.
increase, and you add a step, and then you add the COLA on top of that.
that's what you're saying, yeah. Is everybody okay with that? Because
Yeah.
that's the way it'll come out when we do the pay plan, apply the COLA to the whole pay plan and upgrade it,
Correct.
update it. Yeah, okay, all right. All right, you know, I think we've gone through a lot tonight and
we
got,
get Dan back in?
pardon?
We get Dan back in? You gotta get our missing member back in?
Do you want me to get Dan?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, let's get him, I'm sorry. Sorry,
I don't want to miss out.
that's right.
Dan?
So we've already got some stuff figured here, tax rate.
But what I'm thinking is,
Dan?
we still have a time frame to consider here, because Sandra's up against it as far as getting everything printed, and then the warrant, of course, is going to the town council and stuff, so, but we've set a meeting for next week, Wednesday anyway. What did he do, Lee?
I thought so.
You want to be out of earshot, big time.
What? No, my office couldn't hear you. My ear is 50% though.
Okay,
Well, the jury wasn't listening at the keyhole.
I love this last column. It is, the tax rate for the new year is 46 cents. That's only the wages. I love it. We got a long way to go before we hit the limit.
something in the town of Vernon. Oh, I know.
Yeah, we're in good shape there.
So
Yes,
I will finish inputting the budget, and send you 3 scenarios of the omnibus budget as well as the summary budget. And I will update the
oh, wait a minute, what
articles.
will be the 3 versions of the omnibus?
Well, I was gonna do one with no COLA, just so we have that as a baseline.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then
okay.
2.8 and 3. Oops, I didn't say that, did I?
I didn't vote on it, so it's
Well, it's
fine.
all public information, he
Yeah.
just can't participate in the
All he has to do is
process.
go on.
Yeah,
I
I
just
just have to
Oh.
look at it.
Yeah, it's all public.
I just can't vote.
You did nothing wrong, it's all
Yeah.
public.
That's
There it is.
And the
Well, I don't
official
know
that Dan
if-
left and
You've
Dan
got the
came back.
baseline here, you gave us,
It's not, with your recommendations, it's not the baseline.
yeah,
So I will put in your recommendations.
yeah,
I
okay,
will send those all out. I should be able to do that tomorrow.
okay, all right, that's good. Now, can we leave that and go on to our other business? But,
We're up to review of the minutes.
I'm sorry?
Review of the minutes, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Do you, oh, one more question, do you have any sense of how long this might take you?
He
To
said
do
he'd do it
these 3
tomorrow.
versions?
Workbook is pretty much done.
Okay,
It's
so by the
printing
end of the week, we should have it, so we can
tomorrow.
really,
I will email it to Rose tomorrow
you
evening.
see how confused we get when we get it the last minute.
I can send it out, my printer died, but
It'll be PDF files, so.
I can just forward it on to them when you send it through the computer. All right, minutes.
I make a motion to approve as submitted.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the March 12th minutes. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
I abstained, wasn't here.
Opposed?
No, she abstained. She
Abstained.
wasn't present.
Okay. And then we have communications. This is from the town of Bernardston. I believe it's a copy of the letter that they sent. And might as well tie it all in. There was a great deal of discussion, as you can imagine, at last night's four-town meeting, select boards and finance committees, about the planning and budget and discussion, and a lot of concern about the contract given to the superintendent. Here's a letter from a copy for us of the letter that town of Bernardston sent to the Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education. He'd be above some of these others that we've talked about. And it's signed by the three selectmen and the Finance Committee members. And they've sent it to Senator Joe Comerford, Representative Paul Mark, Representative Susan Whips, Jay Sullivan, Associate Commissioner Mary Jane Handy, DOR. Those are the two we talk about some. Kingsley, the State Overseer, the Chair of the School Committee, the Superintendent, and copies to the 3 other select boards and the Finance Committee. And the letter says, Commissioner Riley, the Finance Committee and Select Board of the Town of Bernardston respectfully ask you to overturn the recent agreement of the Pioneer Valley Regional School Committee with Superintendent Jonathan Skagel for a new 5-year contract. This 5-year deal starts at an annual salary of $127,000 with no raise the first year, and then 5% increases in salary for each of the following 4 years. Over the life of the contract, this is committing $750,000 to $800,000, including insurance benefits, to this one person who, with no prior experience, has been our superintendent for approximately 8 months. Our district of less than 800 students, which is smaller than a large high school, has well-documented financial problems. Our town is strapped as far as revenues are concerned. Our town budget is committing $3 million of our $4 million raised in property taxes to the PVRS district. We believe that the overseer assigned to our district should have expressed concern about this contract. We had hoped, the overseer would prevent financial irresponsibilities from continuing in our district. The overseer has stated that he has no responsibility to the towns, only to the Commissioner of Education. If his responsibility is to monitor and advise on financial matters, then it logically follows that he has responsibility to those paying most of the expenses, the towns. We know education of our kids is needed and we know it is expensive. However, we hope you will agree with us that this contract was a capricious and ill-founded decision that should, capital N-O-T, be affirmed. We hope you will in good faith agree with us.
Very good. Yeah, that's
Had
to
to
the
be said,
point.
I think, you know?
Absolutely. Well, we'll draw up letter.
So, now Andrea has left for signature here, a letter about this from Tracy, the chair of the select board here, and me. This is to the Jeffrey Riley, Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education. And it's the Finance Committee and Select Board of the Town of Northfield respectfully ask you to invalidate the recent agreement of the Pioneer Valley Regional School Committee with Interim Superintendent Jonathan Skagel for a 5-year contract. This 5-year deal starts at an annual salary of $127,000, no raise first year, 5% increases for each of the following 4 years. This is similar to Bernardston. Over the life of the contract, this committing $750,000 to $800,000, including insurance to this one person, who with no prior experience has been the interim superintendent for approximately 8 months. He has had one performance review and has not yet completed an entire school year, nor has he been through an entire budget cycle. In fact, the Select Board and Finance Committee question whether Mr. Skagel has all the necessary qualifications and or certifications to be appointed a full superintendent, let alone be contracted to the district for a full 5 years. Our district has less than 800 students, which is smaller than a large high school, and has well-documented financial problems. Our town is strapped as far as revenues are concerned. Our town budget commits over $5 million of our $8 million raised in property taxes to the PVRS district. We are sure you must be aware of the financial situation in our district, which has led to a recently approved deficit borrowing. We believe that in his assigned role as overseer for the district, in reviewing the financial issues, the overseer would prevent financial irresponsibilities like this contract from continuing in our district. The overseer has stated that he has no responsibility to the towns, only to the Commissioner of Education. If his responsibility is to you, we would have hoped that he would have brought this contract to your attention after it was signed on February 14th, 2019. and before the borrowing was approved on March 15, 2019. If his responsibility is to monitor and advise on financial matters, then it logically follows that he has some responsibility to bring this to your attention on behalf of the towns who are paying for his services. We know education where our kids is needed. We know it is expensive. However, we hope you will agree with us that this contract was a capricious and ill-founded decision and should not be affirmed. So she has left it for my signature, and then it'll go next Monday for select board and for Tracy to sign. I think it's needed.
Yep.
Okay.
Have you read the whole contract?
I haven't seen it.
So we're only going by hearsay.
What, that he?
No, it's been published. Well, published in the paper.
The whole contract?
No, the dollar amounts.
So we have no idea if there's any language in there or not that this is strict 5 years.
Well, I think you watch the school committee meeting and you'll see what they did.
But you don't know what other language is in there.
That if he doesn't do certain things, that he's null and void? Is that what you're thinking?
One of the school committee members offered to talk to me and explain it, and not ours. And he said that Scavo wanted to make a commitment to the district. So then it followed that he wanted the district to make a commitment to him. And I asked whether, in the length of a 5-year term, what would happen if I use the expression if things went sour, and you don't expect that to happen.
Yeah, 5 years is just extremely unusual
It's unusual and
for
it's
any
long.
administrator.
Yeah, usually 3 years.
In
is
any
the
public
standard.
school, it's been, for principals it's 3, for superintendents it's 3. I have, in all the years I've been in education, I've never heard of a 5-year contract.
Yeah.
No.
Well, for towns, I know the select board can agree to 3-year contracts, whether it's procurement or whatever it is, but to go beyond 3 years, it takes a town meeting vote to do that. And his is, but rules are different for schools, so maybe, but you've never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
Or that
It's just-
percentage of an increase?
Well, I don't know what increases, but I just talk about that.
The 3 versus 5 years.
I would-
Yeah.
If I was a teacher and I was negotiating for a contract as far as doing that, and I saw that somebody, I would be extremely upset if they said, well, we don't have enough money, we can only give you 1 or 2 year, or 2% increase. So that to me is a slap in the face to teachers more than anything.
Yeah.
as far as-
Absolutely correct. Absolutely. That is a,
And the part about the amount, it was told to me that, well, he wanted to get what his peers get. Well, he's not, well, a peer would be somebody with the same experience and so forth, I would think. So,
And you should take into consideration the population of the school and, that sort of thing in the surrounding towns, that they can actually afford.
or what happens if we join, example, there was talking about joining another district, merging with us.
Yes.
You could potentially have a new superintendent and him.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
We have
fine.
no clue
Yeah,
what's in that contract.
yeah.
And it could have in there that if the district chooses to merge, then this contract can be null and void. We have
It should
no
be.
clue what it says.
Correct, yes.
And we're all criticizing it.
That came up at our,
Well,
when we heard about the HAR committee, we said, one of the things we're supposed to be doing is looking at long-term
Right.
financial stability,
just to
and
make
this seems
some
to fly in the
decisions
face
that
of that.
source of funds.
Because one of the things, as you just mentioned, is if we, or as he just mentioned, we're looking at shared services.
But we
One
don't
of
know
those
if
shared
that,
services is the superintendent.
but we don't know if that
Do
language
it after.
is in the document.
We don't.
Okay.
So-
Well, then it's not,
I suddenly thought of it and I thought, gee,
We don't know if it is or it
okay,
isn't.
once we finalize
So, I mean,
it, then
that's
we'll
hard.
it's not.
I would think that if they were gonna do that, if they're gonna change the the district, as far as doing that, we'd have to have a whole new contract anyway, because now there's, what do you got? You got 3 or 4 superintendents out there, so they'd have to come up with some kind
There's
of,
two.
huh?
Just two.
Well, it depends on who they bring in. You got Turners, you
Well,
got,
right now, they're talking about a
two.
six-town district.
Okay.
Your
Yeah.
Montague
Yeah.
and Fort Townsend.
Oh, yeah.
So
This-
then what would they do? Say, okay, we're gonna go with the person with the most experience? You know, what, you know, how would that work?
Yeah.
So basically, one of the positions would be no longer valid.
Well, I think this,
You could be on the hook for the rest of the term of the contract.
That's the
Yeah.
potential,
It all
but again, we
depends
don't,
what's
that's the
in there.
thing.
We don't know.
Exactly.
Yes, you're right.
And I don't think they probably thought of that long term. I don't think
I
they.
don't think they've got problems yet.
Okay, oh yeah.
let's see, back to one of the items about the OPEB. If we're gonna have it every year, do we need it in a special article, or should we put it right into the operating budget? Or do you want an article the first year and then in the budget thereafter?
That's how we've done lots of things like that
Yes,
before.
Yeah.
first time is,
Right.
okay.
And I think in part of the explanation is we explain that again, that this is how we started, but
Yeah.
our plan down the road is to have it every year, if we actually have to do it.
And I still have to put in some articles, which it's just standard, but I put in the one, you list all the detail for the omnibus, but I just say this placeholder, hold it. And then I put in the one preceding it, just copy from last year's contingency article, we call it. And I will put in one for, I'd like to put money into stabilization, so that will, when we wind things up, we'll see what we get. And I want to put some in OPEB, some more into OPEB this year.
Would we treat them both like same stabilization and OPEB, kind of the same each year? What we can afford to put in, just like we.
Oh, I
But
don't
we'd
know.
have to start the article. as far as-
OPEB might not be as much as we could do for, I'd like to get keep stabilization up. We certainly aren't going to spend any of it.
And we won't know what we have until all these are.
Right, right, but just, I'll put in placeholders for
Right.
those articles. Okay, that's the communications. Beth wants to talk to us,
Oh, no.
well, about assessors and a request that they have.
Don't put those warrant lists away yet,
No,
folks.
this is money.
Today, I was notified that the assessors may need to make an additional budget request. It would be it would be a warrant article. I'm a little limited as to what I can discuss because there's
I told her
Litigation.
that's okay. There's some of it's confidentiality based on possible legal implications, so don't,
Don't
she
worry
can't,
about that.
she can't disclose anything like that, but she'll tell you the general need for it.
so it would be to do an interim adjustment assessment for a property for fiscal 20.
And there's a, can
It's
you
a-
tell us what the amount is?
That's just it. I'm not going to know until I'm hoping Tuesday as to whether or not this needs to go through.
Okay.
But Andrea and I were estimating that it could be around between 20 and 20,000. I'll say 20,000. A full assessment was costing, I think, like 33,000. I don't foresee Northfield would be having to
The whole thing.
income that whole cost. I'm going to call over the next few days and try to get some figures just to be prepared. So Tuesday I should have an answer, and then I can't attend Wednesday's meeting only because I have office hours
So
downstairs.
Tuesday you have an answer to the cost? Okay.
And to
Okay.
whether or not this even needs
We
to
need
Okay.
Yeah,
Go through it.
so
go through.
we'll
with it.
have the information for Wednesday.
Hopefully. So either I'll let you know during the day, or if
Yeah.
Bob wants to come up, he can, if he's available
Okay.
to talk about it.
Okay.
I just have office hours, so I can't come up.
Yeah, that's right too.
So we have to find another 20 possibly.
20.
Right, that's what we've got to plan on, just in
Would you
case.
spend it before July 1st? Would you need it early?
That's a good question.
Find that.
I don't know. Everything's
Okay,
kind of
so-
riding up.
So,
Is this, wait a minute, would this be something that is unforeseen?
we know of a way, she's already told us.
Yeah.
So it's not.
No, but something that we
It's
had not
unforeseen as far as the
anticipated.
agenda.
We not
here
had
tonight.
anticipated it.
Well, it was
48 hours.
it wasn't
no.
anticipated this was going to even have to happen.
No, that's okay. It's whether you need it before July 1st or not would determine the source of funds.
Right,
Correct.
because if you thought you might need it any time between town meeting and July 1st, we need to do it in a different manner.
Correct. And I'm
So-
hoping to have all those.
Okay, but that's
What
one
is
of the
it?
things you can find out for us.
Yep.
So Wednesday, Tuesday, you may know, well, by Wednesday morning, you can tell me
Yep.
something about it.
Yes.
Okay. That's
And
what,
last page update.
yeah. So, all right, Beth,
Sorry.
thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I guess we're down to meetings attended, and we know there hasn't been one on, but how about your,
The governance committee had a public meeting last Wednesday here at Town Hall, and we informed the townspeople, was well attended, that where our preliminary report position is. And because we're televised, because we weren't last week, I asked the committee's deference for a couple of minutes, so I just explained, so it'll be on television to our residents, what
Okay.
our position is. The prior committee did a report for 2013 and asked for a review down the road, and that's what our job is, to review their findings and to see to move forward or if there were any changes necessary. The first one was to put an empowered town administrator in place, which was done. We agree with it, no change. The issue of positions that went from elected to appointed, treasurer, tax collector became appointed. We agree, no change there. The town clerk is still an elected position. We agreed at this time, no change, but potential research down the road because this job requires so much experience, education, knowledge. It's not something easily, this type of experienced individual is not easy to come by in today's world, especially in our community our size. But right now, we're going to stay with elected. But we're going to we probably would have to look several years down the road to potentially change that. Yeah. And we see no change in the assessor's clerk position, which will still be appointed by the Board of Assessors. We agree with the prior committee compile a set of general government bylaws which do not exist in this community. Basically, there would be legal rules to govern this community. There's a lot of things that are covered here in this town, certain general bylaws, who enforces it, what's the mechanism for enforcement, that doesn't exist. The committee had strongly suggested that the town move forward in that area. There has been no movement. We strongly suggest that this, as soon as possible, a committee be either appointed or this project be undertaken.
we have some money at one point to get started on that, or was that you codifying?
It's
something?
codifying it. They're actually looking at both the zoning bylaws and the general bylaws, and they're going to put it in a code form as far as doing that. But that's just the 13 odd pages, which is very minimal.
It's minimal, and many of them don't address, again, example, certain enforcement mechanisms. It doesn't say who enforces that bylaw. And how do you, example, if say somebody violates a bylaw, how do you remedy that situation? There's nothing about ticketing or bringing some type of court action or civil action. There's nothing exists. So in all honesty, nothing gets done. So this is clearly a serious weakness that needs to be addressed. And the other recommendation, they thought about it, but they didn't recommend, but we are recommending, especially since the public support and input was, we're putting in, drawing up an article that we hope will be on this town meeting warrant for this town meeting to increase the select board membership from 3 to 5 members.
Now, what would they do on that? The next voting?
They would vote on the increase, and then the election that would take place next year. There'll be a mechanism
Effective 1 year,
to
right.
set
Because
staggered.
sometimes it's a certain amount of, but if you're gonna put it down, okay.
Absolutely, that's all gonna be addressed. But the earliest that an election would take place
yeah.
would be a year from
Yeah.
that's correct.
How about, did you look up the non-criminal disposition law that we have on the books that we voted many years ago that would be the enforcement of some bylaws and that sort of thing?
The problems we found is that the town's bylaws are so vague, and the other thing is
Outdated.
they haven't been updated whatsoever since, to meet, many of them may not even meet current state or federal legal requirements.
That's one of the things that the people they're doing a coding
Yeah.
are going to look at and see if some of the language would be applicable or what they would recommend. They can only recommend as far as doing that, and they're just doing this because we had a little extra money to do it. So there'll be maybe some things for a committee to help out with that. So I'm waiting to talk to them next month on the zoning bylaws, is how they're working on that. So I will mention this because they're doing it because, it's only 13 pages, we can knock it off easy, so.
Yeah, but this is clearly, we looked at other communities who have extensive, even similar sized communities, the example is Deerfield. They have extensive governmental bylaws. We have very little.
Exactly.
And again, it's clearly needs to be addressed. Some effort must be put into that. And that was basically it. We're going to do our final report. That's a preliminary of what we've come up with, and we're going to do a final written report, which we're going to present to town meeting. And that's where we stand.
So now that means you'll need an article.
That's correct. The article what we use as a sample has been transmitted to Andrea Lamas.
Okay.
She's going to write it up and then present it the next day to town council for the legal aspects, and then obviously will be put on the warrant.
Yeah.
And
It's not money, so it's
no,
not
there is
gonna
no
be
money
anything
involved
other,
on this. And the other thing too here is that even if say the townspeople approve it, it still has to be approved by the state legislature,
AG's office.
and that to as the final before it becomes fully.
So would that be like a bylaw then? They'd have to go to the Attorney General, and then next year it gets voted on, then you have.
No, they just said that the legislation,
Just have
that's
to-
what has to
okay.
be approved.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be a bylaw, it's not necessarily a bylaw, it's just approved by Attorney General.
Well, that's the thing. We were looking to see what town council would say. Does it go to the AG's office, or does it need enacted to the legislature? That's what we're going to find out too, because we're not the legal experts. That's why it's going to be drawn up and brought to town council, and if anything has to be tweaked or changed, or better inform the residents of what the process would happen afterwards, that's going to be drawn up.
Because of it, okay.
So,
This is where we're going to be running short of time.
Mhm.
I think she's got it, and so I'm talking about Andrea having it.
I know, the thing is, we've tried our best,
Yeah.
to keep the public informed. We had this, the meeting, a lot of the residents were very happy because we got, we've had plenty of meetings, we've kept it on Nextdoor, the town website. Most of the people said they were very happy about doing the homework we've done,
Yeah.
the openness and transparency, and it allowed them to have input in this. And again, we also said too, I said, this is our recommendation, but it comes down to the voters. We will respect the wishes of the residents of Northfield. If they wish to approve it, fine. If not, it's their decision to make the final arbiter. And that's it. That's basically what we
Okay.
accomplished.
Tony, CPA, and Matt since last week?
Yeah, we did inform people of our decisions. Two of the three projects
Yeah.
were approved. One being the replacement of the doors of the field library,
Okay.
which I understand are the original doors from 100 years ago. And the other was another shed for the rec commission,
Up at the
which will be put next to the shed that's down there now.
back of the elementary
Right
school.
in the back of the elementary school. We did approve monies for that also.
Okay.
Let's see.
Did you see today's paper about the state match?
I did see it, and it's been going down, there's no question about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also sat down with Phil this morning, or
Yeah,
yesterday morning, and got a handle on, we got to figure out where all the
Money is.
monies are.
Oh, and
all that kind of
allocating, yeah.
stuff, so,
certain categories have to be,
yeah, so we're good with that.
okay.
And
And you've told the, excuse me, you said you had 3 requests and you're approving 2 of them, recommending 2 of them. And you've told the third
all
one.
three,
that-
yeah, that isn't going to be, but the third one was having to do with the
Oh,
plaque
downstairs. But you've told the people
Oh,
that,
yeah, they've all been told now. So
Okay,
I can
all right.
say something.
good.
And let's see, Heart Committee.
Yeah,
Heart Committee, at our last school committee meeting, we presented, or the district agreement proposal, or our recommendations for it were presented. And I think we may be done with the Heart Committee, because that was our job, was to present these, well, 2 things. One is the district agreement, and another one was we got involved in perhaps the shared services thing,
yes,
kinds of
yes.
things. And we presented all that, and I understand now that we have presented to the school committee. Now it's up to them to adopt it, change it, whatever they want to do with it.
It's got to go, eventually it has to go to the towns for town meeting
Oh, yeah,
vote.
and they're hoping that
And I think
we'll be
initially,
able to get it this town meeting.
I don't
but
think
it's
so.
going to be tight if
yeah,
we do. But if not,
I don't think they're going to make it. Now, ours is the first town meeting of the
Right.
4. Warwick and ours are the same night. And then I think Bernardston is the same week.
right, it's
And then
it's-
Leiden is a little bit later.
it
So
would be very tight if they
it
do
would be,
make it.
because they haven't voted on it yet, and here we are with our warrant closing.
Yeah,
So, you know, we don't know what changes might come of that, so, okay. But yeah, you've done your work on it, so that's good. Thank you.
we're meeting tomorrow night here
Oh,
to discuss, are we done?
okay,
Oh, I think that will be the outcome, but I don't know.
I get the impression the Heart Committee is not particularly happy with the way things have gone as far as the contract over there
Oh,
either.
no, because we did send, along with the letters you guys sent, we sent a letter. We were probably the first one to send a letter
Yes,
because
yes,
we heard
So
about it, and the next day we were putting together a letter saying, what are you doing? We were talking about long-term sustainability.
yeah, yeah,
And you're giving this guy a 5-year contract, and he was, well, at that time, it was less than 8 months.
yes,
So, and my understanding is he had a mentor, former superintendent, who was with him, so I don't know if you can say all the stuff that happened was on his watch. It wasn't his watch, but the school committee did pay for a mentor for him. And it just was, to us, really strange
well,
that somebody with no previous experience, who has a mentor, was given a 5-year contract. And the other thing being 3 versus 5. I mean, that's unheard of.
the mentor was there was a mentor, but I understood that he wasn't charging because he was formerly from the district.
It was formerly from, but I understand that there was a
Payment?
there.
Okay.
Some of the payment was there.
Yeah,
So I'm almost positive on that.
okay,
So, like I said, it appeared in the paper the day before our heart meeting.
So
We
you
talked about it, and we immediately wrote a letter, and that was in the mail the next day,
okay,
expressing our displeasure to the same people that
yeah, okay.
you guys
Um,
sent letters to.
Okay, thank you. Now, as far as last night's meeting, Bonnie and Sue were there, and I was there. You were in Texas,
Texas, yeah.
so
Texas.
the decision was, I told them of our decision that even though our assessment went down, that we were willing to stick to our agreement and say that we would not recommend the budget if any town's assessment went up. But I think Biden was the first one to say that and the others agreed, the other three towns agreed, they are satisfied that the budget has been reduced so the percentage increases are small. But Bonnie got a vote that we say that if there are any school closings to save money, that money is to be returned to the towns, which would mean through reducing the assessments later on. It would not be, you wouldn't be getting money back, it just wouldn't be paying it in. But that's we didn't want them to.
Last meeting. Yeah.
We didn't want them to just repurpose that money.
Right. And there was a debate back and forth whether it should just be school closings or any savings they find or added income that they get. Because sometimes money drops out of the air that they didn't realize they were getting. It's happened in the past. So the part of the discussion was if you allow them to try to save and they can't reap the benefits of savings, that's a disincentive. But then I think the thought and agreement was that we really have to look ahead. And just because you've saved money doesn't mean you can put it somewhere else. It means you've got to pay off the reason why you're in the trouble you're in. So that's what, and then some people thought, well, maybe we could take that savings and they could make an advance payment on the debt. But that's illegal. You can't do it that way, the way it's written. So the best thing was to send it back to the towns. And a thought is that once the school makes the vote of what they're closing, there'll be a difference in the budget, what that savings should be. And if they don't vote to close it, we'll amend on that night.
Yeah.
That was the thought process.
There won't be any increase. I went to the school committee meeting again last Thursday, and I said, "You're changing it again." I said, "No increase, no. Only if it went down that they'd be having to come in and make a change."
But that's what we want to make sure we see, that if the school's actually closed or more money is coming in from the actual budgeted assessment here, and they don't automatically lower their budget to reflect it, we're going to lower it to reflect it,
Yeah.
and that's what will pass. Does
they-
that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
What they've done on, what they are saying is, for the repayment of the debt, that it's being deducted from the cherry sheet money that the school gets. And that's why they say that they had to do it that way. That's why they're saying it's in the operating budget. We have to watch, somebody has to, in 10 years,
Right.
what happens, because my thinking is they'll get the operating budget up to
Double
a
dip.
certain level and you won't see it go back.
That's why whatever the savings needs to come out and come back.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're already talking about putting back in
Right.
positions
Yeah,
That's right.
if it's
Retaining
if
the
it's
students
if they have any
and-
savings. So,
AIDS, you know.
was the last one saying that if you take
Dean of
two
students.
dean of students and the principals, they can have two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd have the
And they're talking about
administrators gone.
2 new faces for people to get used to. Well, okay, excuse
We're
me.
not supposed to get into the actual.
No.
One
No.
question I want to
Parts
ask,
of
did we ever, I know the terms of the loan are 10 years. Did we ever get a response to letters that were sent by the select board and finance committees of the state?
Nobody has.
Not even an acknowledgement that
Of
they
the chance of
received it.
changing it to 5, so we have heard nothing. Okay. That's all.
And, no, there were 2 things. We didn't want it in the operating budget, and we wanted it 5 years instead of 10. Now, last night after the meeting, and I got home, Jane and I had emails from this Tanya financial officer saying that the towns can pay a double payment each year if they want. If all the towns agree to that, they could do that. Well, we know that. you know, and that's not what we wanted. We're not gonna, we want something concrete in there. We wanted it for 5 years. And the figuring based on that. So, no, we're not going for that bait. Okay, does anybody have anything else?
I just have a clarification, no new subject. The school, the article for the school paying early, you're gonna find out if they can do that, if the money can be transferred or whatever, for the electrical and communication. Okay, so we'll have that for next week on our decision. The highway, we're gonna find out about the truck, what it's replacing, but we're in favor, we just want that added.
Yeah.
That's correct, yes.
You wanna know whether it's gas or diesel too, didn't you?
Correct, because it makes
Replacing
a big
gas.
difference in the price. It may
And
add
the-
$7,000-8,000 to the price of a vehicle if you go from
Yeah,
gas.
I made notes on those that we were
And the
talking.
public safety, we're gonna find out more info on that before we're actually a yes or no. The thought is that we're not putting any
Yes,
more in
yeah.
unless we get more
Yeah.
concrete moving
I'm
forward. Okay.
hoping that there was some discussion on that.
Okay, but those are the three that are sort of up.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I agree, yeah.
We went around about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Did you, excuse me, let's give Phil, did you have a chance?
Attention there, no.
Nobody was faster.
I only wanted clarification, and I got it.
Thank you for coming. All right, he's all set. We are adjourned.
All in favor?
All in
Second
favor?
vote, all right.
I
Right.
I declare we're adjourned. How's that?